U.S. Postal Service chief asks board to identify successor. This is by David Shepardson at Reuters. From just a couple of days ago, U.S. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy said Tuesday he asked the Postal Service governing body to identify his successor. Now, identifying body in the or board, my bad. See how the world conditions us to see things that aren't there. I see identify my body when it's really the board to identify his successor. Anyway, don't let that distract us. Let's move on. This is what's happening here in my mind, because people are like, well, why is he doing it now? Why not during the Biden administration? How come Biden didn't remove him? Biden can't remove him, but you would think that the president of the United States, the so-called most powerful man in the world, would have some influence over one person's position, especially when that board is made up of just a few individuals. Come on. I mean, are you not greasing those pockets? You're greasing all the other pockets. What's stopping you from doing this? I tend to think they just don't care. But at this point, Donald Trump may have said, it's time to move on. We've got somebody else we want to get in there. And so when I ask, is this bad? I have to think that this is bad, isn't it? In November, DeJoy warned that the post office, which has lost more than $100 billion since 2007, must continue to cut costs or will remain on the path to either a government bailout or the end of this great organization as we know it, which is DeJoy has been proposing the end to this great organization as we know it since he got the job. He wants to privatize. He comes from that sector. USPS did not say when DeJoy, who has headed the agency since 2020, plans to step down. His announcement comes weeks after President Donald Trump took office, likely paving the way for somebody else. That's my uneducated guess. Also could be that there's a lot of talk about the U.S. Postal Service right now, and National Association of Letter Carriers are organizing. We'll talk about that momentarily. And I have to think that this guy just doesn't want his name in the news, whereas it's been pretty quiet for the last 4 to 6 years. Nobody's really been saying a whole lot of anything. He's just been quietly sitting there getting away with it. The U.S. Postal Service is implementing a 10-year restructuring plan announced in 2021 that aims to eliminate $160 billion in predicted losses over the next decade. The USPS now projects $80 billion in losses over the period and plans further cuts to address the shortfall. He has faced criticism, this is DeJoy, has faced criticism in Congress about processing network consolidation plans. DeJoy in December defended the USPS's plan to buy a rising number of electric vehicles after Congress gave it $3 billion after overseeing the delivery of tens of millions of ballots for last November's presidential election. And we also want to live in a world where the mail is delivered on time, and that means taking care of letter carriers and everyone who works at the United States Postal Service. It's got to be one of the most difficult jobs of all time. They used to do it by horseback, mind you, where a guy would ride for long periods of time, switch horses, and keep going. It hasn't necessarily gotten less complex. It's not an easy job. It can't be. And that's why, look, you do you. But I know my mail carrier. I'm out there giving them every holiday, even if I don't celebrate it. It's like, here you go. Here's a gift card. Here's a $50 credit card, whatever it is. From us to you. And they will give you a card back saying thank you. It's a good relationship. But we have to take care of these people. There's a number of ways to do it. And some of them you can do today. Let's talk about the USPS, United States Postal Service Fairness Act. For over a decade, and look, I just want to make everyone clear what the actual budget problems are with the post office. I had a neighbor who was a letter carrier for 20 years over, and we were talking about, it was in the news when DeJoy first got appointed, and we were talking about it, and we were talking about, the problems with budget at the USPS. And I said, it's that whole like having to pay for your retirement funding thing. And he was like, oh my God, The fact that you know about that is so hopeful because we at the post office don't think anyone knows what the real problem is. So let's talk about it in terms of the solution. And this is how you can help. For over a decade, the United States Postal Service has been plagued with the onerous burden of pre-funding its retiree healthcare benefits as mandated by the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act, the PAEA, of 2006. The mandate requires the Postal Service to pre-fund its retiree healthcare benefits 75 years in advance, paying for retirement healthcare for individuals who haven't been born yet, let alone enter the workforce. Why? Why would you do that? I'll wait for the answer. While you're thinking of something clever to say, here's another question. Who else does that? What if every organization and business and corporation and everybody who wanted to do any kind of business had to guess how many employees they're going to have over the next 75 years and pay for the retirement plans up front? Would that not immediately put you into debt? The problem since 2013, we just read that, didn't we? No, we did. The problem since 2013, the pre-funding mandate is responsible for most of the Postal Service net losses, and it has defaulted on its pre-funding payments since 2012. No other federal agency or private sector business pre-funds its retirement benefits. Okay, there you go. The uncertainty inherent in satisfying the PAEA pre-funding mandate is creating real instability in the Postal Service's operations. How could it not? The postal employees we represent see the consequences of this instability in their work, their workplaces, and in the service they provide the public. Now, this comes from apw.org, the American Postal Workers Union. And so when they say we, that's who we is, that's who they are. When DeJoy or anyone in his position says, hey, we got a problem here, we're losing money, they're essentially lying to you without actually having to lie. No one has said why they're losing money. They just they leave it to everyone listening to assume that the Postal Service is wildly inefficient and disorganized and filled with waste. Look at this waste right here. Was there a problem with the Postal Service before this? Surely there were some things that could be enhanced or improved. That's everywhere all the time. You should have constant improvement in every business and organization. When it comes to the post office, we definitely need to be giving them resources. We definitely need to be giving them funding. We definitely need to show support. And by we, I mean the government in this case. But instead, look what they did. And so anybody talking about the problems that they're having there now financially can point right to this. Otherwise, bad faith actor. The solution, the USPS Fairness Act. Recognizing the problem pre-funding creates, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the USPS Fairness Act last year with a sweeping bipartisan vote of 309 to 106, but it stalled in the Senate. This year, it has been reintroduced as H.R. 695 in the House and S-145 in the Senate. With a new Senate majority, we are renewing our effort to remove this damaging burden on our Postal Service. By repealing the pre-funding mandate, the Postal Service would then be able to focus on investing and innovating new services in order to better meet its mission to service every American household and business. Please contact your senator and ask them to become a co-sponsor, or thank them if they have already signed on. Call 844-402-1001 to be connected to your senator's office. That number again is 844-402-1001 to be connected to your senator's office. That again from the American Postal Workers Union.